Hey guys, this is John, and I'm playing Providence, who I lost to recently, but I hope to take revenge on now. We'll see what he does. This is John Bryant I think he's from California, but we had a Scandinavian game recently that I posted, maybe 3 days ago that I lost. So this time around, looks like we're going to get a Tarash defense by transposition. I don't know that this is an opening I've had on video before, so this ought to be intriguing. Main move here is bishop g5, but I'm going to take on c5 and play pawn a3. This is a popular way of playing for white. Basically, I'm just aiming for a small edge and playing against this isolated pawn. I think you could sum up white's approach against the Tarrasch oftentimes with exactly that. But it's black's biggest liability in these positions, because otherwise black's position is great. I mean, he has perfect development. The light square bishop can sometimes be an issue, finding a square for it, but the d5 pawn is by far his biggest concern. So he's going into the tank a little bit here. I remember he did the same thing when we played our other game. Like, he thought a lot, like right after the opening moves. Slightly unusual, I guess. I mean, in this position, bishop e6 makes sense for him. He could try a6, so that after b4 he can retreat his bishop to a7. Keep it on the same diagonal that he's currently on. Because I will definitely go b4 next move if I'm able. I think d4 is also a move. This is really weird that he's thinking this long. It's a long time to play a pretty natural move. Bishop e6. I mean, you just hope that they're like not looking up the line or something while they're thinking that long. I don't want to accuse him of anything, but that thought always crosses my mind whenever people do that. I want to get rid of the tension on the knight on c3, but that's not easy to do. In fact, in order to do that, I pretty much have to play knight a4 in this position. Which weakens my c3 square a little, assuming that he's going to take. But I think I should do knight a4, because otherwise I was going to have to defend c3 in an awkward way. Queen b3 was not possible, because he could have played d4. I'll just take. Probably jump the knight into c5, unless I see something better. Queen d3 makes some sense in this position. Let's just go knight c5. I don't see a reason not to play that move. Maybe knight d2 was also interesting, to try to get rid of that knight and then go knight c5 later. If I wait, though, there's a possibility he could play b6. So I'm just going to pre-move taking on c5. He's opting for trades. Makes sense. Just try to ease the pressure on his position. Well, let's see, what are my options? Queen d4 would be nice, but that just loses instantly to taking on f3. Knight d4 is an option if I want to avoid the knight trade. Queen c2 would be natural. If queen c2, he can take on c5. I take with the queen, and then maybe just b6. Yeah, I don't think I'm any better there. Well, maybe queen c7. Let's give that a shot. That looks as good as anything I'm thinking about in this position. Knight c4, though, I'm a little worried about that. And he does it. Possibly I should have traded. Yeah, I think I should have traded knights. So now my a3 pawn is hanging. But he can't take it yet. He could, but I could go queen a4 and then win his pawn there. So maybe rook d1 is not a bad option. Don't know if I want to do that, though. Okay, we'll compromise. We'll go here. Queen b3. Just to defend the pawn. And if he takes on c5, at least I take and I'm hitting the b7 pawn when I recapture. Now my short-term plan will be to play rook d1 in the coming move or two. It really depends what he does. I don't even know if I can describe a short-term plan. He could go d4 and try to x-ray my queen. I was thinking about queen d3 then. I'll just pre-move that just in case. So time-wise, I'm doing well. But I know he can whip off a lot of moves in a short period of time, so we'll see what happens. I mean, b6 seems like a really normal way of playing for him. b6 will force me to trade rooks on c8, and he gets the file, and he gets to activate his only piece that isn't in the game yet. Okay, so trades and then goes queen e7, so he's going to go after these weak pawns. That's not a bad idea. Be knight d4, rook, knight d2 I have to worry about. Okay, let's go. I just don't want to end up down a pawn, but it's kind of looking like that might be what's going to happen. Yeah, I think I'm going to be down a pawn. If a4, he has rook c8. Okay, let's just do that. Going to be down a pawn, but we'll just pitch it and we'll try to go from there. He can take with his rook now. Then he leaves his queen defending b7. Let's just centralize this. I'm thinking maybe I can go e4 and gain some counterplay. Be nice to win a game on time for a change. I'm usually used to flagging myself. That's my tentative plan, to win this game on time. Let's go here. Looks slightly annoying. Let's attack that weakness. Okay, now if king f7, I might have check. So he does that instead. Ooh, he has rook c4 now. But I have queen b5 then, and I'm threatening mate on e8. So he decides against that. Let's just keep annoying him with pins and such. We'll probably go queen c5. c1. Let's put that back there. Now I'm threatening maybe rook e1. Let's get coordinated. Okay, I like my pressure now against that knight on e7. Let's just do that. Just to be safe.
Time warning.
Okay, well, he flagged. Sort of a weird game. It's like he took so much time in the opening. This is how my opponents must feel when I win or when they went on time against me. Let's take a look. So with knight f3, sometimes you do get transpositions to the Tarrasch defense, which normally, if you're unfamiliar with the Tarrasch, arises from the following move order. This is like the proper way to get into it. In this position, black playing c5, and then after white capturing, which is a good idea because now white has one extra center pawn compared to black, you get this position. So as played in the game, we just got that same position, just a slightly twisted move order. d5. b6 is another very popular option for black here, and fianchetto the queenside bishop. So d5, this is all standard. I want to go d4. If I were to play like a autopilot move like bishop g2, he could play d4 himself, and my opening strategy has been a disaster. I'll have to move my knight somewhere poor, and he takes over the center. So I play d4 now. Knight c6, bishop g2, bishop e7, castle, castle. So the traditional main line is bishop g5, but there's actually like a really great book out on the Tarrasch defense by this Danish author, and I know I'm going to butcher his name because his name is like very hard to pronounce correctly. Jacob, it's like, it looks like Agard, we would say in English, but it's not pronounced Agard at all. And someone tell me how to pronounce it, please, in the comments. It's like Aagaard. I'm not going to attempt to do it. But anyways, Agard has a book on the Tarrasch out that I think he co-wrote with this Greek player. And they seem to suggest that in bishop g5, in this variation, black has good play after c4, closing down the position, and playing more so on the queen side if possible. And I've played these positions a few times. I actually was thinking about playing this entire line for black, but I just didn't like having an isolated d-pawn all the time. But I agree with him. I think bishop g5, c4 is looking very reliable for black. Previously, black does this. Like, this was the main line for a long time. And I know there were a lot of Karpov versus Kasparov battles in one of their early World Championship matches where they played this position quite frequently. I think it was their first match, the aborted match, where Karpov was trying to grind him down in these positions and often succeeding. But this line, taking on c5 and then playing a3, it's a line I've recommended to my students in the past too. It's just a simple way for white to ensure that black ends up with the isolated d-pawn, so you're not allowing black the opportunity to play c4. And you just want to go b4 and put the bishop on b2. If everything goes according to plan for white, like I'd play like rook c1, knight b5, knight bd4, and just blockade the isolated pawn. That's classic strategy when you're playing against an isolated pawn. So you blockade it first. You don't immediately try to go all out and win it. Like, it's not realistic for me to expect to win this pawn right now when black has at least 3 pieces trained on it in defense. So I want to try to immobilize it and later go win it. That's your best strategy when playing against an isolated pawn. So it's just really weird though, because like, I'm just looking at his time. He spent 1:15 on bishop e6. I mean, I know I've spent egregious amounts of time on moves too, so this might just be an anomaly, but it wasn't like a sharp position or anything, so I wonder what he was thinking about. Anyways, so like after this, knight e4 seems like a good move. I think that's smart because he's basically saying, like, if you want to go do your whole knight b5 thing or knight a4, I'm going to have an unopposed knight on this central square. And it's hard for me to get rid of it. I wonder if knight d2 is decent for me here, just to try to address that knight. I don't want to exchange, because if I exchange on e4, he gets to get rid of his isolated pawn. Black's totally fine. So I wonder if knight d2 was an option at this point. Engine actually likes taking. Says I should take and then play knight d4. I guess it argues that this pawn is a slight liability for him. I don't know. So I just played rook c1. That move might be a little bit rote. It's a little bit too standard of a move to be good, because I think after bishop f6 he's fine. In fact, he might be better. Yeah, I didn't think I had very much at this point. He took, I took with the rook. Yeah, and I should have simplified, done some exchanges, huh? That's what the engine's suggesting. Knight takes. If knight takes, I thought he might even take here. Okay, but then I have an in-between move. And then take here, and maybe this pawn's in trouble a bit. Yeah, I shouldn't have let this knight survive. I played queen c2, but immediately regretted it when he played knight c4. That's a powerful knight. Yeah, queen c2 was not a good move. Even just taking on e5 was better than that. And I see the engine slightly prefers white, like in a position, let's say like this. Thinks maybe I have a tiny, tiny advantage. I think his activity more than makes up for it, though. Yeah, and after knight c4, it felt like I was worse in the game. Queen b3, another move that wasn't that great. It says rook takes c8, rook takes c8, queen d3 with dead equality. I guess white's solid, but black has absolutely nothing to complain about. I'd rather be black here. I like their activity, especially in a blitz game. So I went queen b3. He traded. Queen e7. Yeah, I really didn't know what to do here, because it seems like I'm just going to lose a pawn. Possibly I shouldn't even have wasted time on playing a4. But I was afraid, like, if I play rook d1, that he would take on c5. And then when I grab here, he just takes on a3. I think I'd rather fight with one pawn versus two on the queen side than just letting him simplify to a single pawn advantage, if that makes sense. Like here, the play seems very easy for him. It's just push the a pawn. Whereas if I keep one of the pawns on the board as I did in the game, I mean, I'm still much, much worse, but the way forward for him on the queen side is more complicated. Eventually, he'd love to create a passed pawn with this extra pawn on this wing, but there's more pieces on the board. It's going to be a while before he's able to do that. I think I did a decent job of creating counter chances and time pressure. Yeah, knight d6 was not the best move by him, but he was getting lowish on time. Queen e3. Queen e3, the engine likes kind of x-raying this rook, threatening to take on e6 with a discovered attack on that rook. I took on e6 and then targeted the pawn. He played knight f5. I went e4. I actually didn't see that he could go rook c4 when I played that move, but I quickly realized that queen b5 would be a real strong response, and he's got too much stuff hanging. Mate plus the knight on f5 and the pawn on d5. I guess even, yeah, knight d6, and I can take this guy, huh? And then take here once he gets out of the check. Tough position for him. I mean, he's still better, apparently, but the time is making it almost a moot point that he's better. And now white's fine. Yeah, and this was just a time scramble. Did I miss something? I guess I shouldn't even have bothered with rook c7, just take. Yeah, and this was just a flag. Okay. Well, glad I got a Tarrasch game on video, and hope you guys enjoyed that one. Please leave me any feedback in the comments. Thanks for watching, guys.